All right, so this is the next avenue for our little Chickster dude. We need to take our rig, add some more extra stuff to it so we get more control. You'll see that I have these little things up here that are now moving. It's not going to be the most realistic look, but we'll definitely add some, little subtle changes to it, just because we're still in the intro phases of rigging stuff. Then obviously you want to create a walk cycle so that we can create not only this guy walking, but have several other characters walking. All right, so let's save this. And I'll jump back to my previous version of him, which I believe was number 2. All right, so this is where we last left him off, so we can have these controls here, these knee controls. He does have some extra stuff on him here. Let me just go into my outliner. What are those things? Yeah, I'm just going to delete that. There we go. Okay. All right. So what we need to do now is we have this eye set up, right? So we can do that. We have the blink. We have this master controller, so we can move his hips around. We have these feet controllers, so we can move his feet up and down, curl his toes if we need to. We can grab this one, rotate his ankle, which really don't really need this one because this is parented to that. We can set that up. If I didn't show how to do that one, I created a circle. I grabbed the circle. I shift-clicked the joint right here, so it grabs that whole mess. And then I went to constrain, orient, maintain offset, add whatever. And then I obviously made sure that this is parented to this guy first. The transform is frozen, and it's named. Okay, so I think that's the one I may not have shown. All right, so now we need to get the wiggle on him. So to do the wiggle, we need to have some sort of animation to kind of test it to make sure the wiggle is working. So what I'm going to do is just grab the hip area, and if I rotate this gives me kind of a good idea or a good visual of what's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to set a couple keyframes on here. Doesn't matter, I'm going to delete them anyway later, so I'm just going to go start at frame 1, then go to like 15 and just do a little rotate, go up to 30, do a little rotate, 45, do a little rotate. Okay, and what this does, I can frame this so that we're kind of locked into that zone. So what this does is gives us a frame of reference for testing out our jiggle so that we can have these things kind of moving. There's other ways to do this. This is just kind of like the simplest, quickest way. It's not terribly important for this specific assignment, but I do want to show, some of those other things. So in order for this to work, what I have to do is grab each of these points. So I'm grabbing just the tips points right now, just like that. I'm going to hit Shift and then use the greater than sign a couple times. Maybe one more time. No, that should be good. Yeah, not one more time. Just these 3 rows here. Okay. So then I'm going to go under Deform and I'm going to say Create Jiggle. Jiggle Deformer. And if I reset this, there's no special options here. I'm just going to hit Create. All this stuff can be changed afterwards, so it's not a huge deal if we don't get it right. All right. So now if we hit play, you'll see we get this. All right. Let's actually go back to his circle here. We'll make ourselves a little bit more frames, and we'll go to 60 and just kind of reset this. And set a key on it. Come on, set a key on that. And then we'll have some extra frames just so we can see what it looks like when it stops. Okay, so obviously not the best setup. I basically want the tips to jiggle more than the base, right? So what I'm going to do is grab the skin here, and under my deform, Further down here, there's a jiggle paint right here, jiggle paint. I'm going to go to the option box, and you'll see what it does. It makes this white, and then this is black. So this is showing us what the jiggle deformer is actually controlling. So if I go to smooth, and I start to paint on here, what it's going to do is start to blend the black into that white area. Okay, now this may take forever, not forever, but a long time to get this to work because of just how the smooth operation works. So what I'm going to do is go to scale and set this to 0.9. And what it does is as I paint this, it's going to shrink down those values even lower. If I hit 3, we can see a little bit better. Maybe I'll go to 0.5. There we go. A little bit more drastic. So what I want to do is create a nice gradation so that the bottoms are pretty black/grayish. And then the higher up we go, the whiter it's going to get. Okay. And pretty uniform because you don't want one point on the, like here, the point on the back is really white and these are gray. You want to hit those. Okay. So now I can preview this. This is why we set the keyframes. Okay. Now it is extra jiggly, which will obviously correct. We just want to make sure that the bottoms aren't going too crazy. All right, so that should be good. Okay, so now I'm going to come over to my attribute editor and go to my jiggle one. And I can play with these settings here. So like stiffness, if I crank this all the way up, they're not going to be very jiggly. Okay, I guess it's still pretty jiggly. I'm going to take my damping, and I think I had this down. I think I had the stiffness down too. And then the jiggle weight was the one that really started changing stuff. I knocked this down. It's probably too low. But when I knock this down, you'll see that there's barely any movement. So then I can start to crank this up some. Okay, and what we want to do is just find a little subtle movement. So I'm going to go to maybe a different angle. There we go. That might be good. Maybe I can crank this up a little bit more. That's perfect. Okay, so what we don't want to do is have the kind of jiggling. We just want to kind of like the swaying, and then it stops. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so I did 0.1, 0.1, and 0.65. Those are the only 3 numbers I need to change. Rewind. I'm going to go to the back feathers, do the same thing. Shift greater than, greater than, greater than, greater than. Okay, greater than. I don't need this base part here, so I just want to get it right to about that point. Okay. Then I will go to deform. I will go to jiggle deformer. I can copy the same settings. So if I remember, it was 0.1, 0.1, 0.65. There we go. And then we hit play. It's obviously going to go crazy because we haven't painted the weight yet. Yep. You can see the whole thing's kind of moving as one. All right. So then we'll go back to this. We'll go back to deform, go back to our jiggle paint, option box. If you don't bring the option box up, you don't get this. You could just double click that and it'll bring it up. But obviously you want to see it. Now it's showing me the jiggle weights for these. So I need to pick on this and say jiggle 2 weights. And now I'll see number 2s. So same thing. Make my brush a little bigger maybe and just start to paint. Ideally the base should be pretty black and just a nice gradient into the rest of it. Like that. Okay, and then you can preview, you hit play. Okay, you don't have to look weird, though. It's kind of weird. There we go. And then maybe I'll use smooth now, and that'll help me kind of blend this a little bit nicer. There we go. That looks decent. Okay. All right, so that works. And then we can always adjust this later too. Like if we do our walk cycle and we're not happy with that, we can always come back and tweak it. But I think it looks pretty good. All right. Cool. So that was the jiggly stuff. Okay. Now I can delete the keyframes from this. So I just rewind it to the beginning, right click, delete selected. And if I didn't rewind it, all I have to do is just reset these back to 0. And then he'll be back to where he was. All right, cool. We need some neck controls here. So we could put curves in here, but we really don't need to. what I'm going to do is just click on these three joints, this one, that one, and then this one, and then go to Display, Transform Display, Selection Handles. Okay, so now I'll have, it might be hard to see, might still be hard to see, but I have some selection handles in there. Okay. All right, so they're there. I also want to, I can hide these so I don't accidentally move those. All right, so I'm just going to hit Control H. That hides those things because, like I said, these are parented to that, so that's going to control the same thing. Okay. So now what? Let's go and start doing our walk cycle. So when we do a walk cycle or we do any kind of animation, save as first, we want to make sure that that we set it up in a smart way, right? So we're going to be animating a lot of stuff. For the walk cycle, he's going to be moving up and down. That's kind of cool. His feet are obviously going to be moving. And then his neck will also be kind of bouncing along too. So it's going to be difficult to grab everything and kind of pose him and then hit grab something and then set a key on this, grab this and set a key on these, grab this and set a key on that, grab the knee controls, if we needed to modify these and set a key on that. Same thing with the eye if we move this. It's a lot of stuff that we may accidentally forget about. So we want to make this process easier. So we're going to go down here, and you'll see this says no character set or a character set, and then none character set editor. We're going to make what's called a character set, which basically allows us to take all the stuff that we are going to use for animation and bunch it together. So anytime we hit the S key, it'll set a keyframe on all that stuff. So this is the, you must do this. This is going to be something that'll save you so much time. Takes a little bit, like 3 minutes maybe to set it up, 5 minutes to set it up. So I go to, should not jump ahead, key character, create character set, option box. I don't select anything, and I call it Chickster. That's the dude's Chickster. I'm just going to hit apply, and then close. Now I'll have a character set down here that says Chickster. Now what I want to do is start adding stuff to Chickster that is part of what I want to control. Okay, so like I want this thing here. I want to be able to move this thing and rotate this thing if I need to. Whoa, poor guy. So I'm going to take all the controls for this, translates and rotates. I don't need the scales, so I'm not going to touch the scales. And I'm going to go to key and then add this to my character set. Okay, so now those are inside my character set. If I come to my outliner, I see there's Chickster. I open this up. That's what's inside it. Okay, the master controllers, rotate ZYX, and then the translate ZYX. Cool. Some of these things we don't want to ever be able to do, like scaling. There's not really a purpose to scale this because you'll see that he goes kind of crazy and whatever, and we'd have to tweak that. So what I want to do is grab these things here that I would never modify. I'm going to right click and say lock and hide. Okay. So now the scales are gone. So we can't accidentally grab this and scale it. You'll see that now it's locked. I cannot do that. These things here, I'm only going to move these. Okay. So I'm never going to rotate them. There's not really a purpose to rotate these or obviously scale them up. So I'm going to grab my rotates and visibility to scale and lock and hide. And then I'll grab my translates and I will go to key and add those to my character set. There we go. I'm going to go down to the feet. And because they have the same attributes, I can grab both at the same time. These ones, again, I would never scale these because that doesn't work, do anything. So visibility and scale, I can right click and lock and hide. And then all of these here, I can go to my key and add that to the character set. Okay, a couple more things. This item here. Now, when you select these, even though we have the selection handles, we still have to grab the middle of this. The selection handles just kind of remind us that we have those there. Okay. Again, I'm never going to translate these or scale these, so I just grab all those and lock and hide. Actually, I'm just going to hide the lock and hide. Is that going to hurt anything? Nope, still good. Okay. So then I can grab the rotates and add that to the character set. Grab this controller. Never going to rotate this thing. Shouldn't need really just scale it up. Change the visibility. Channels, lock and hide. And then I'll just add the translates and the blink. Okay. So that should be all of our controls that we're going to be using to animate this Chickster. Now, we're not going to animate every single thing at once. What we're going to do is kind of break it up into pieces and then modify some stuff as we go. Like the head stuff I typically leave till last. Okay. So we're going to be creating a loopable animation with this. And we want this to be kind of like a fast thing because he's going to be running and jumping. So our time here, we're going to set it to 30. So I'm just going to set each one of these numbers here to 30. And that's how long this is going to take. And that's actually maybe a little bit too slow. Maybe we can go to 24. I give us just a little bit quicker movement. Okay. Now we can adjust stuff, right? So we can go in the dope sheet and scale things up, squish things, whatever. Especially with this character set, we can see all the keyframes. Okay. So I'm going to go to my key. I'm going to say set key option box, and I just want to make sure this is reset. Before I had it set to all keyable from channel box, I don't want that anymore. Okay. So I'm just going to hit set key, and then I'm just going to delete my key. Okay. So I'm going to go to frame 1. And what I want to do is set this up to what he should look like for his first frame, like the first frame of the loop. So nobody starts running or is in the middle of a run loop like this. If we were going to have him like starting from here and walking, that'd be something different. But we're creating a loop of this, okay? So it's always good to kind of look at this kind of thing, which is just a run cycle that I looked up. And even though it's a person, it's still a biped, so it still makes sense. So some of the things to look at the line of action here, okay? The direction that this is going, that's the action our guy should go. Looking at this one, we get a little bit more detail. Obviously, further down, we get more detail too, but it's kind of easier to see the simplicity here. They're off the ground, right? So they're like pretty high up. So we look at a couple things. We look at the direction of the feet, the direction of the character's body, and the direction of the legs, okay? So that's what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to go back to Chickster. And I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to kind of line him up. So let's say we grab this. We just kind of pull that forward a little bit. Because this is the middle of a cycle. Okay, so this isn't necessarily here. This is going to be this pose right there. That's going to be the start and end of our pose. So I'm putting him like this. And I'm putting one of his legs out front. And if we look at that foot, it's kind of like up, right? So it's kind of up like that. And obviously this is higher too, right? So we should probably raise this up some, push that forward. Maybe this can come a little bit forward. All right, and then we have this foot. That's going to come back. Now, this might be like way too high. He might like, this is like a ridiculous, this is already ridiculous height. Let me just lower that. There we go, that's better, okay? But any of these settings that we do, we can always change it, okay? So it's good. Now you'll see I rotate it and it kind of freaks out. That's because my knee pivots are kind of went the opposite side of the legs. So we just need to move these up. There we go. Okay, so now we have kind of that same pose. You can see there's a line of action here. This can probably be pulled back some. This can probably be pulled up some like that. Maybe I'll give this a little bit of rotate forward. Maybe I'll give this a little rotate back. There we go. Okay. It's always good, like we watched in those videos, to be kind of like over dramatic about it rather than under. Okay, so we're kind of dealing with just this area now. So we have this kind of pose right here. So all I need to do is just hit S. And you'll see down here it says result 43. So I've set 43 keyframes just by hitting S. Okay, otherwise I'd have to grab this, set keyframes on all these. Grab this, set keyframes on all those. Grab this, set keyframes, grab these, set keyframes. So it's much simpler, obviously, just to have this character set up. Okay. Now, for our cycle, you'll look at this pose here, and then you look at this pose. It's not perfect, but you'll see that these start and end poses are essentially the same exact thing, and then the middle pose is going to be the opposite. Okay. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to say we're at frame 1. We set a key here. That's what we want to look like at frame 1. At the end of our cycle at 24, I'm going to hit S and set a key there too. Okay, so frame 1 and frame 24 should be the exact same frame. Frame 12 should be the opposite. So now we have this foot is going to be back here. And it's going to look weird until you pose it. And then this foot will be forward. Okay, because when you create a cycle, you want it to be matchy-matchy. Okay, we don't want to buckle the knees like that. That's like too much. So I want to have just some slight bend in that. There we go. Okay, so I hit S to set a key, result 43 again. So now we hit play. We should see this. Okay. All right. So if we look at the high point here, this is where she's at her highest. And if we look at the number of poses here, she's pretty much, this is like her lowest, right? So we have 1, 2, a low pose, and then she comes back up. So if we look at kind of like the middle of this is where our character, or maybe even like right here, actually at 8, this is where our character is going to be a bit lower, all the way down to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is grab these 3 items and kind of push the character down. Okay. And I'm just going to set a key here. I just moved it down and set a key. Okay. Because usually what happens is I forget which foot is going to be planted and which foot's going to be off the ground. So if you look at this foot here, okay, so it's a right foot is on the ground here. Then it's on the ground, then it's on the ground, and then it's kicked back in the air, and then we start this cycle over again. Okay. While the other foot is in the air, 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 and then it stomps down. Okay, so that's what we want to do. So whichever foot was in front, that's the one that's going to be coming down to the ground. Okay, so right here in the center of this foot should be pretty much rotated back to where it was. Should be pretty close to the ground. Sometimes it'll do that. Just reset that keyframe. Okay, sometimes I set a keyframe and then I'll move it again. There we go. That's another keyframe. All right, so now we have this where it comes in. Okay, so you can see how we're getting this walk cycle. So now I need to do the same thing on the other foot. So halfway is 6 frames, so I go up a little bit more because this crouchy area is actually a little bit further than halfway. So let's say 20 here. So now going to be the other foot. Will be on the ground. Oops. Grab all 3 of these. Push down. Reset that rotate. Set a key. Okay, so now let's see what that looks like. All right, so we're getting there. It's definitely not smooth enough yet, but it's definitely getting there. It looks nice and smooth already, but we just need to obviously tweak it some more. All right, so what's happening here is that this foot, if we look at that foot right here, it's coming back on pretty much a straight line. Okay, and we don't want it to come back on a straight line like this. We want kind of this arc. So as the foot comes in, there should be kind of like a planting and then a rotating, and then it comes up. So it's kind of like this circular movement. So right now we have it hitting there and then coming in on this line and then coming back up. Okay, so what I want to do is go up to maybe, let's say 3, maybe 4. Okay, on 4, we'll put this down here. I'm going to take the back toe and give it a little curl. Now it's going to be kind of hard to see what the side view looks like, so I'm going to switch to my front view so I can see exactly where this foot should be planted, just like that. Okay, I'm going to set a key. I haven't touched the other foot right now. I'm just setting keys on this one. So now we go here and it comes in. Okay, our foot's flat. And then right about here, right about there, I want this foot to maybe be just a little bit like this, a little bit curly-toed. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other foot. Okay, so I'm watching the other foot. Don't care about it too much here, right there. Okay, so now this other foot is up in the air. So when it comes down a few frames later, like there, then I want to move this down. I want to, a little bit of an angle is fine. And then take that back toe and curl it in. Okay, and again, not buckling out the leg. There we go. Now let's see what that looks like. So it's a pretty decent walk cycle. You know, we haven't really done a whole lot to it. I do want to set up that other toe right there. You can definitely see we're like going through. So this should actually be coming like more flattish. This toe should be 0. And sometimes it'll just, like I said, do that. 0, 0, perfect. Set a key. And then right about here, that's where I want to give a little bit more pivot to this. A little bit pulley-uppy. And front curls a little bit, curled up. There we go. Set a key. Cool. Okay. So the biggest thing here is we just need to make sure that these poses are working. Okay. And that's a pretty decent, that's actually better than my first walk cycle. Pretty decent setup. Okay. And you want to just kind of look at it and see what he's doing. So what I want to do now is just kind of look at areas I can kind of smooth this out. So here's where I can really kind of start to tweak some of the stuff. So I'm going to go to my graph editor with the hips. Okay. If I look at the translate X, there's no movement in the translate X. This is the forward and back, which is perfect because it really shouldn't be moving too far forward. There might be a little bit of movement there, but you know, for what we're doing, don't worry about it. For the translate Y, you'll see that there's a gradual like slope down, slope up, slope down, slope up. But if we look at these keyframes here, these are our extremes. And everything else is just kind of a blend of that. So if I just take these middle keyframes and just delete them, we'll create a smoother motion of him moving up and down. Okay, so that works pretty good. Looks pretty good. If I needed to move him up or down, like let's say I wanted this to be higher, I can grab all of these keyframes here and move all of them up if I needed to, or move all of them down if I needed to. Okay, so don't be afraid to tweak stuff in here, especially if you're kind of, you know, not sure. Save your file as, play with it, and see what else you can come up with. Nothing really on these other ones, which is fine. Okay, so I'll grab the feet. Here's the translate X, and you'll see we have the same kind of setup. We have an extreme here, an extreme there, an extreme here. Everything else is just kind of blending it. Okay, so if I delete these middle keys, it'll just kind of smooth out that transition. Here's my translate Y, and this one's going to be kind of funky. You may not want to tweak it too much, but I can go through and kind of delete some of these keys that are not supporting that shape. Okay, rotations. Delete that. Delete that. Okay, nice smooth transition here. I didn't delete this one because I think we're probably going to need that one right here. Okay, if you're not sure, you can go to the frame, delete it, and see if it does. And you can see it definitely did take away something there. Now you also see, if I look at this, this circle is away from the foot, so he's actually gone a little bit too far forward. So this really should be coming back to like that. Okay. Now because I've kind of cleaned up my graph, I don't want to hit S. So I'm just going to go grab these two keyframes and just set a key on those. Okay. So that will help smooth that out so that his feet don't leave that curve. Cool, cool. Okay, nothing in translate Z. All right, here's my rotate Z. Nothing really fancy here. I'll leave that, like I said. We got the other one, do the same thing. Okay, just kind of smoothing out some of this animation. Now, again, some of it needs to be there. If you're not sure, go to the frame before you delete it. If I'm not sure if I can delete this keyframe, I look at what frame it's at, 21. I go to frame 21, I check out this pose, and then I can just delete it and see if it changes anything drastically. And you can see, oops, it was right there, I delete it, it barely moved, okay? Same thing here, I can tell that when I delete these, that curve is gonna stay pretty close to the original shape. Same thing there, okay? This one I don't want to delete because it kind of slopes down and comes over. Okay, cool. You can see that once you kind of play with this, you'll get the idea of what's happening. Not a whole lot of movement here, I can just kind of leave those alone. Okay. So now we have this cool run cycle for our character. Okay. So now what I want to do is you'll see is stuff is kind of bobbing here. I want to add a little bit of neck movement. Okay, because that'll really help kind of sell the animation because his neck is like perfectly straight. So I'm going to grab the stuff here. And I know there's going to be basically 3 major poses for this. There's going to be a pose here, right? So all 3 of these, his head should be at about the same spot, okay? And then right before that, his head may be kind of down, okay? Because when he's at his highest here, his head would actually be kind of like down here, and then it comes up. His head would kind of like flip back a little bit. So I'm going to go to the graph editor, and I'm just going to kind of clean up some of this stuff. I missed one of them. Let me see. I should have 3 of these. That one, and that one. There we go. Okay. So the rotate Z is the direction I'm going to be rotating these things. So I know that this and this and this, my first, middle, and last keyframe, are going to be the same. So if I go and start tweaking this, when I'm holding shift and just moving it up, you'll see how his neck is starting to like arch upwards. Okay, so now if I were to hit play, you'll see we get this kind of like bobbing. Okay, now it looks kind of awkward how he's doing it. Let me just frame this so we can see it all. So what I want to do is just kind of delete these extra keys. Oops, there. Okay. There. Okay. So now we have this kind of thing where his head is high, and then it's going to gradually go down, and then it'll flip back up, and then it'll gradually go down, and then flip back up. So I have a keyframe at 8 and 20 for the low side, where his head's angling down, and I have keyframes at about 5 at 1, 12, and 24. So now if we look at this, we should get a nice smooth motion of his head, kind of, or his neck kind of bobbing up and down. Okay. Now this eye control, we could also move. Okay. We'll do the same kind of thing. So if I know that this is going to be in the translate Y, because it's just going to go up and down, and I know that 1, 12, and 24 are going to be upwards, I hold shift and I start to move it. You may need to zoom out just because it's kind of slow moving. Oh, probably go to that frame. It's too high now. There we go. And I don't want to look up. I just want to make sure he's still looking straight. Okay. Right about there should be good. Now, if I forget what other keyframes I did, I just grab one of these neck joints, grab the rotate Z, and I can say, oh, the other 2 were at 8 and 20. I grab this again. There's 8. There's 20. So then I can just delete the rest. I just want to make sure that the head stays, or the eye stays kind of lined up with the rest of it. Okay. Now it looks like his eye is kind of moving a bit weird. Maybe it's just the angle. Yeah, I think I'm going to lower it just a little bit. Okay. There we go. Now it still looks like he's looking at something like as he's traveling. A little bit too high before. Cool. All right. So now we have this pretty sweet walk cycle. So now I'm going to save this. Save scene as Walker walk end. Okay. So what we need to do now is we need to create our field of these dudes. So I'm going to rewind this to the beginning. I'm going to go to my outliner so I can can see it. There's body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the body at frame 1, click back on the body. Say I go to frame 3, duplicate the body again. Go back to the body, go to frame 5, duplicate the body, go back to the body, go to frame 7, duplicate the body, go back to the body. You get the idea? Go to frame 9, duplicate the body, frame 11, grab the original body, duplicate it. Might be easier if I pull this down here. 13, duplicate, 15, duplicate, 17, duplicate, oops. Make sure I grab the body. There we go. 19, 21, body, duplicate, 23, body, duplicate. Now you'll see we don't end at 24, and that's perfect because 24 and 1 are the same. So we don't want to duplicate 1 and 24 because that would make no sense because they're the same frame. Okay. So now if we look at our outliner, we should have 12 poses. Okay. And if I take these and just isolate them, and I'm just going to offset them so we can see this better. So I'm just going to grab number 1. Oops, I have to grab all of these first and then unlock their stuff. Selected. Okay. So just so you can see this, I'm going to move number 1 over. Then I'm going to move number 1 and 2 over. 3 and 4. 1, 5. Whoops. Okay. So now if you look at this, you'll see we have basically each one of our poses. And that's important because this is going to make our field of these guys work. Now you'll notice too that the eyes are missing. So we have to duplicate the eyes also. So I'm just going to grab these and reset that. Okay. And we just didn't do it when we did the other one just because we'd have to select 2 things at once. So I'm just going to go back to here, to this. I'm going to group these. Body group. Okay. And I'm just going to throw those on a layer just to get them out of the way. All right. So now I'm going to grab the eye, hit F in here to frame it so I can see where the eye is. And the eye just has this constraint on there that'll come off later. And I'm just going to do the same thing. So I'm going to duplicate the eye at frame 1, go to frame 3, duplicate the other eye, go to frame 5, duplicate the original. So imagine if we had 100 frames we had to do this for, holy cow. Now, the reason we're doing every other frame is because the stuff that we're going to be doing is pretty intense as far as like the geometry requirements. Okay, so I hit Shift P to unparent all those eyes. I'm going to group them, call them eyes. So if we had every frame, that would be a lot of geometry duplicated across our entire scene. Eyes group, keep everything the same. Cool. All right, so now we're taking my eyes group, put on this same layer. There we go. So our walk cycle is still here. It still works. It's still perfect. We still have our eyes and our body group. Okay, so I'm going to save this scene here. And I'm going to take my eyes and body group that I just selected in the outliner, and I'm going to export them out. So I'm going to say eye group or instance group. Oh man, cancel that. Too quick. There we go. Instance group, and I want to save this as a Maya binary file. Okay, so now I can save the scene and then just reopen my instance group. Okay, so this should give me my layer with my chicksters and their eyes. Now, for some reason, all the eyes are right there. Why is that? Let me try that again. Let's go back to our walk end. So something happened where our eye did not duplicate the way I was hoping it would. Oh, because it's parented. Dang it. So I'm going to duplicate the eye, and then I'm going to hit Shift P. Okay. Then I'll go to frame 3, grab the original eye again, duplicate it, Shift P. So I have to do these like at a time. Grab this, duplicate the eye, Shift P. Grab this, duplicate the eye, Shift P. Go to 9. If it's hard to select the eye, I can just go back to the outliner. There we go. Duplicate the eye, Shift P. Grab the eye, go up to 11. Duplicate the eye, Shift P. Grab the eye, go to 13. Duplicate, Shift P. Grab the eye, 15. Duplicate, Shift P. Go to 17. Duplicate the eye, Shift P. Go to 19. Duplicate the eye, Shift P. Go to 21. Duplicate the eye, Shift P. Go to 23. Holy cow, it takes forever. Duplicate the eye, Shift P. Okay. Ooh. Now, there's all my eyes, my new eyes. So now I can group those. Delete my old eye group, because I don't need that. Rename this to regular eye group. And then I want to just rename these so that they're the same. 13 was the first one, 24 was the last one. I want those to kind of coincide with these. So if I grab 13 first and then 24 last, I should be able to go over to this arrow and say rename. And I'll just call this eye. And when I hit enter, come on, 1. There we go. Trigger. There we go. And an eye. There we go. Okay, so rename it something totally different, and then rename it back an eye, and then it'll be in the correct naming convention at least, so that 1 will correspond to body 1. Okay, now we'll export that again. Put these on that layer. Export them out. Make sure it's binary. Yes. 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 Save. New. Open. I always do a new just to make sure that it is saved and cleared. Okay. So now I turn this back on, and now I have eyes that match up. Okay. So what I need to do is, in the eyes themselves, there's all these constraints, so I can just delete those out. Those. Okay. I'm going to grab all of these bodies and just assign a material to them. So rendering with RenderMan. So I'm going to go to Materials, Pixar Surface. And I'm just going to call this Body Material. Okay, because once I parent the eyes, there we go, perfect, green guys. Once I parent the eyes, I don't want the eye material to change. Okay, so now I'm going to take number 1 and just middle drag it into number 1. Okay, so now if I just isolate this, you'll see that number 1 now has an eye. Okay, so I'll isolate that, grab number 2, middle drag onto number 2. Grab number 3, middle drag onto number 3. See why the naming is important? If this stuff isn't named, I was going to swear, then it's very difficult to do. Cool. Now we can delete the eye group, and now we have our body group. Awesome, awesome. So weird. Okay, so now we need to create our running guys. Okay, so I'm going to leave them exactly where they're at. We'll tweak some stuff later to get it to work perfectly. So under my FX, like the channel, under End Particles, I'm going to go to Create Emitter Option Box. I'm going to change this to a volume. You can change that later too. I'm going to change this to 5, and then I'm going to say Create. Okay. Make this huge. Actually make it kind of flat, not flat yet. I need to go down here and change this to away from center and away from axis off, and take my along axis and set it to 5. Okay. So what this will do is it'll take particles and shoot them out of here. If I rotate this where the arrow is pointing, it'll go this way. So boop, there it is. Okay. Now it's going super slow because this is only set to 5. I set it to 500 and hit play. You'll see them kind of shooting along. Now this specific thing you'll see is, regardless of how big I make this, we're still going to have some height differences here. Okay, so every single particle, unless I change this to like super duper tiny like this, is going to be super small. Okay, now this could work because what we're going to do is replace each one of these particles with one of these guys. Okay, so this could work, but there's other options that are maybe a little bit better for this kind of thing. Okay, I just want to show you that this is going to be the same kind of thing we're going to be doing. Okay, so I'm going to go to create polygons plane. I'm going to make this huge. Okay, this is where they're going to be running, is on this plane. And if I go to sculpt tool, there it is. And I'm just kind of clicking and dragging around. You may need to adjust the size of your brush, the strength of your brush, to get some better results. Okay, the guys are tiny, so you don't want to go like mountainous, but definitely, little bits of variations are nice. There we go. Hold Control to go the other way. Hold Shift, it'll smooth it out. There we go. Okay, so just something cool. So now I'm going to go to my FX panel again. I'm going to go to Effect, and under Flow, I'm going to create a surface flow. Okay, so I click on the surface. I'm going to call this Chickster running. Create particle, yes. Create particle per flow. That's fine. U direction, sure. 5, 0, create. Oh, dang it. Oh, dang it. Delete that. I need to create a NURBS plane. The little things. There we go. So, it might crash on me. All right, we did experience a lockup there. So I just redid my stuff. Save it. So I'll make a NURBS plane. Okay, perfect. Go over here. Add some more patches, like 30. Maybe 70 in that direction. Just make them square. There we go. And then the same thing that, maybe this is a bit too big. Shrink it down some. There we go. So these guys are kind of small, so they're going to be running around here, so I don't want it to be too big. All right, so I can go to my surfaces and go to my sculpt geometry tool. And this works the same way. So hold B, drag it up, hold M. That'll be your master maximum displacement, so M and dragging. And then Control still does that, Shift will still smooth, and you just want to kind of rough this up some. Okay, so what this is going to do is give them kind of a terrain to run around. Maybe I'll kind of raise it up on the edges and smooth it in. There you go, just smooth it out. All right, that should be kind of cool. What do I mean kind of cool? It's going to be awesome. I don't want to leave any spot untouched. It looks weird if you have like one area there's no movement at all to it. So you should have everything kind of, somewhat moved like that. Okay, so now I'm going to save again. It crashes again. Go to my FX panel. Go to Effect, Flow, Create Surface Flow. Okay. Chickster running. And everything we can pretty much adjust except for this. I believe that's kind of locked in. So we'll just leave that the way it is for now. And then hit create. Okay. So some stuff we can't adjust, like the number of these curves. So I'm going to look at that first. Holy cow, it's a lot of things happening. So what's happening here is that we have not enough curves for what we need. I do need to hit undo. And then go back to that. Effect flow, create surface flow. Control resolution, maybe I'll do this to 20 because we have a lot of stuff there. And then maybe 3 for our subcontrol. Should be fine. Emission rate, I'm going to set to 1. And particle lifespan, I'll set to 20. Yeah, 20 should be good. So it should take 20 seconds for them to get from one side to the other is what that means. Okay. Now I create. We should get a lot more curves in here, kind of matching our surface shape a little bit better. If you don't have that, what happens is they will obviously go through the ground or above the ground. We don't want that to happen. All right, so there we go. A lot of stuff on here now. And then if we hit play on this side, see all of them going. Now this is still like way too much. Each one of these represents one of our guys. That's way too much. So I need to make sure that I grab this locator, the selection handle, go to my emission rate and put like 0.05. And then hit play. Still way too much. 0.005. I basically want to have just like a few kind of coming out. All right. Now just so you can see these better, I'm going to grab the particles and change them from points right here to spheres. And if I go to my attribute editor for the particle and I scroll diggity down to current render type, make that like 5 or even 10. I said 10. Why aren't my voice commands working anymore? Cool. Now I hit play, you'll see that these things are kind of flowing along that surface. Now they stop because they don't have enough frames, so I'll make more frames, like 500. Play. And you'll see. Now some of these are going to dip below the surface here, so obviously that could be an issue. Okay, especially like right there. So this is where are my control curves? Emission rate, random thread, display, sub manipulators. There we go. So that's all the ones right there. So we can see where the areas are. Now what I can do is I can actually take this and shift click the particles and go to particles, make collide. This one on the bottom here. Oops. Yeah, selecting the other order. Always the wrong order. Particles, make collide. There we go. So what should happen now if I rewind and hit play? You'll see that these are going along. And some of them are just running off the screen. There we go. Okay, now our focus is going to be kind of here. So as long as we don't have too much collision there, we should be fine. Okay. Now we can take that selection handle again, and where it says goal weight, I'm going to put that to 9.95. Okay. The goal weight is how much we want to stick to the path. So if this one goes underneath, I definitely don't want that to go underneath. So I want to make sure that it has some room to do that. Okay, so I'm just kind of watching to see what these are doing. There we go. All right, so let's see what happens when we take our little guys and put them on there. And our ground, obviously, we could kind of flatten this out some. Might be a little bit too rough. There we go. And that'll definitely help. Unless we freeze up again. Nope, we're back. All right, so let's replace our guys with, or our particles with these guys. So I'm going to grab these again and just reset their things to points again. There we go. I'm going to go to my window, go to my outliner, and under my body group, there it is, I'm going to grab each one of these like that. I'm going to go to end particles. I'm going to go to instancer somewhere in Hither. There it is. And you'll see that it loads body 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in here. So it's perfect. That's what we want to instance. And then we want to cycle sequentially. So what that means is that every single frame will be a different one. Now, cycle step size, I want to set this to 0.5 so that it'll actually keep each one of these for 2 frames. Okay. Now, I can adjust this later, so if I need to, I can tweak that. I'll call this Chickster instance. We'll play with some of the other settings after. These are the particles it's going to go on. Create. Okay. There they are. So now if we were to hit play, there they go. They're so adorable. They're adorable. Look at them. Now, some of these are floating. If you look, like right here, these guys are floating. We will not be showing those guys. We will be focused on an area where everyone is happy and no one is floating. Okay? So ignore those guys over there. They will build a mountain or something. Thinking because I zoomed in. All right, we can see that actually like most of them are like floating above the ground. Okay, so this is a common thing, and usually what happens is we have one shape that is for our particle collision stuff or particle emission stuff, and then we can duplicate it, and then I can just raise this up and use this as the one that would actually be like my rendering one, and I would just hide this other one. Okay. Now, even when they did like Toy Story and stuff, or Nemo, they had lots of dynamics like this. Theirs isn't perfect, especially with what we are working with, kind of like the default plugins. Ours isn't going to be perfect either. So we will have a little bit of leeway in this. We're just going to have to find that sweet spot where everything kind of makes sense, like that. Like that. Okay. Now we can keep in mind too that if we're a little bit further away from this, like here, now we can get away with a bit more. Awesome. And then for some shots, we can actually get kind of close to this and maybe not show us foot through the ground. But find a good shot where we don't see anything weird happening and get it from there. Okay. Now, they're kind of moving, obviously, they're moving weird, but I also want to change their rotation because as some of these move left and right, they should be kind of angled left and right. So I'm going to grab the particles again. I may need to go to the outliner. I'm going to go to my particle shape. I'm going to go to instancer. And under the aim direction, I'm going to change this to velocity. And what we'll see is that depending on which direction they're going, they will actually start turning. Oops. Rewound. There they are. So now you can see they're kind of going in different directions. Okay. Now, if we find a spot too, because let me hide this bottom one. Okay. This bottom one is no longer needed. I'll put on a layer, just turn it off. Okay. Even this here, I think I can throw that in the same layer. Yep, and everything still works. Cool. So I can take this, and if I find a spot where there's, they're constantly going through the ground, Those guys are my originals. I won't touch them. Let's say here. So I constantly see these guys are going through the ground, and I gotta fix something because they're like facing upwards. I can just move this. uh, so that these points, so that they don't go through the ground. And I think, let me grab the other plane again. The other plane has some geoconnector stuff on it. So one of them is bounciness, which is right here. The other one is friction. I'm going to turn the bounciness off and then play it again. So it might be bouncing, and that's why they're kind of facing upwards. There we go. So now they're not facing upwards anymore. That was really weird. Okay. But this plane here, I can see these areas where people are going through the ground and just kind of tweak it so that it doesn't look like they're going through the ground. Okay. Because what's happening is these particles are floating along this plane. And as they're floating along the plane, they're colliding with certain areas. So like this area is a big bump right here. So that particle may actually be simulating to go underneath the bump, which it is right here. So then I can just grab these points and push it down until it makes more sense. Okay, there's no edges in this, so you have to just grab points and squish them down. Oops. Okay, so you don't need to do this all over the place. It's basically just where you're seeing this stuff happen and where you're going to be shooting with your camera. Okay, and we could also use the brush. So if I go back to my brush, sort of smooth these areas out. Maybe just make it a little bit flatter. I think I make the other one flatter too. I think I just a little bit too excited about that size. So maybe I'll take this down to like a 20 in the Y. Okay, I just grab my original plane and scaled it to 20. So that should obviously make the NURBS plane 2 a bit flatter also. Now I rewind and replay. Boom. Let's turn our other plane back on here and see what happened. Now some of them are like going crazy. Yep, so when I scaled it, this thing just went crazy. So it's no big deal because all we have to do is just delete. See right there, those areas went crazy. I just delete that and then I can just re-add it into that plane. So I grab NURBS plane 1 again. I'm really going to flatten it out this time just because I thought we would be able to get away with a bit more. So I just scaled the Y to 0. So it's like perfectly flat. I'll delete this other plane. And then I'm just going to redo that flow. Okay, Chickster running, create. Then I'll have to change the lifespan again, or the emission rate again. If I want them to go slower, I can lower the particle life, or the particle lifespan. If I make that bigger, they'll go slower. All right, so this is back on, so I know my emission rate's gonna be like 0.005. I'll hit play. And I can see the particles here. Okay, so I just need to go to my outliner, not the outliner. Go to my instancer, and you'll see inside here, this is already set up, but it's not connected to any particles. So I have to delete this instancer, and then I have to re-grab my dudes. Go back to my instancer creation tool, everything's still set up here. Particle shape 1, world position, my aim direction. Remember, we set this to velocity, so that will help, and create. So now when we rewind and we hit play, should be getting those guys. Let's see what happened here. Oh, I deleted the instance, but I deleted the particle shape. So I'm going to go to particle 1 and delete that, delete my instancer again. There we go. So now it's particle 2. Everything else is the same. Great. There we go. All right, now whatever's happening here, again, that could be a result of my geo connector. So if I click on this plane, I don't have a geo connector. What happened to my geo connector? If I grab the particles, no. Go to my attribute editor for this. I didn't make a geo connector. Well, let's see if it does anything further down the line. Yeah, he's still freaking out right there. That's weird. All right, let's delete that again. Delete the particles again. And it's probably just something with my specific plane. Everything looks all right in that spot. Let me go back to my emitter or my effect. And because this is flatter now, I can go back to surface flow, maybe take these down to like 5, 0. Emission rate 0.05. Goal weight, we'll set that to 0.95 again. Let me delete the history on this plane. All right, so now it doesn't look like they're going crazy anymore. So let's kind of watch it to make sure they go all the way along. Yep, so it looks like it's good. So now let me grab my bodies again. You can see how quick this process goes, where you can go back and if you need to redo something, it's just a matter of deleting those elements and then just reapplying that. My emission rate is 0.005. Okay, now right when they come out, they are going to do something weird right here. But for the most part, they shouldn't afterwards. There you go. What happened there? Oh, let me go to my Chickster running. I'm going to take their goal weight maybe down to 0.8. Let's just see what happens there. Yeah, that's working. Now it isn't skipping every other frame, which is kind of weird. So I'm going to go to my instancer, to cycle step, we'll say 2. Maybe I went backwards with that. There we go, that's better. Okay, so now they're running a bit smoother. Perfect. Yeah, and having the flat ground, is a little bit ambitious. Curvy ground. Going the flat ground is a bit easier. Definitely going to look a little bit better because now we have all this stuff. I'm going to turn off my layer 1. And I'm going to hit play. It looks like they're doing something weird now. Like that. looks like somehow they're folding in on themselves. It could just be a display issue. I'll have to render it out to see. I think it is a display issue. Yeah, they're not doing it anymore. Okay. So just a display issue. So now when we render these out, you'll see there's our dudes, and they're all over the place, and it's amazing. It really is awesome. We get sick, they'll have eyes. Okay. Now, like I said, like way back here, oops, way in the back, they are going to be doing that weird thing right here. So this is the perfect time to kind of put in a cave. I'm just going to build a little cave over here. There we go. And then I can just go to mesh and say smooth it out. And I'll take the divisions up to like 3. Go. And then I'm just going to go in with my sculpt tool and just kind of give it some other shape besides this big mouth looking shape. There we go. Now, the reason I did that is because if I create a light in my scene, so I'm going to go to my RenderMan presets, go to my outdoor, go to my whatever. There we go. We'll have this environment. And hopefully the light doesn't shine inside the cave. And if it does, we'll kind of black it out. Yeah, you can see how dark it is there, so you won't see the guys coming out of there. It just looks like a cave now. Obviously, we can enhance it, maybe going in with our sculpt tool and control, pushing it in more. Goes back further. There we go. Because we don't want to just see them going crazy over there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just set up some cameras. First time I've been in Maya. Where's camera? There it is. So regular camera, panels, look through selected. And I'll set this to be 20. Now, this is going to be kind of a weird thing because every time we rewind this, the particle dudes are going to be coming out. And what I want to happen is I want these to already kind of be on screen. I like that guy. I want these to already be on screen. So I'm going to grab my particles here at this frame at like 282 or something. And I'm going to go to end solvers. Initial state. There it is, set for selected. Okay, so now when I rewind this, you'll see that they start here. Okay, so that's perfect. So now when I rewind, now I can set up my camera right from the beginning. I don't have to wait for everything else. So I'm going to select my camera, set a key here, play it for a little bit. That's pretty good. And then I'm just going to like zoom backwards. This way I'm kind of like running with them. Here we go. So now I rewind it and we hit play. I don't want my camera to like start up slow. I want this to be kind of a fast camera. So I'm going to go to my graph editor. There it is, Translate X. I'm just going to make this linear and maybe take this point up a little bit more. I don't want that to happen. We go into the Z. No, we got some Z in here too. Look at that. Z in there. Y in here. Yep, a little bit of Y too. I just don't want to go too far down. About the same level in rotations. No. Okay. See what that looks like. Nope, he still goes through it. I could set a keyframe there just to get him out of the way, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to create, go to my insert keys. I'm just going to insert some random keyframes. Okay, and I can just kind of grab these and just kind of move them up. Okay, now what this should do is just kind of give me a little bit more movement. So let me stop there for a second. Let's go back to the graph editor. Yeah, see, this one looks kind of weird, so I need to just delete that one. Maybe just kind of angle this a little bit, pull it down. There we go. Maybe a little bit of Z too. We'll do the same thing. So I'm in my insert key, I'm just middle clicking. And then just kind of moving these around a little bit. There we go. Let's see what that looks like. Still go through that guy. We'll fix that. We got some keys there now, so we can just kind of move things around. Okay. Rewind, we'll come back right there. Okay. So right about here, I'm just going to kind of scoot the camera over some and then set a key. Okay. Got a little lull right here. We're not moving much. So I'm just going to go to my graph editor. Maybe delete some of that stuff just so we keep moving. Okay. Now I'm going to set up another camera. And this one will run this way. It doesn't matter the two cameras are going the same direction or the same frames. I'm going to hit play. A few hundred frames, good. Set a key. Oh, dang it. I just set that one. My Maya froze. Go back to 170. All right, let's rewind this again. Let's go to 170. Set a key. There we go. Then rewind it. We kind of get back into the herd. There we go. Now we hit play. Kind of running alongside them. Okay. Same thing as before. I don't want the graph editor to be like this. So all three of these I can just grab and make linear. I'll go to my keys and just kind of add some stuff here. Oops. Just kind of tweak some of these a little bit. Same thing with Translate X. Okay, gives it a little bit of jitteriness. Oops, that was a little bit too much movement there. Let's go back to our graph editor. Yeah, Y is fine, steady. Yeah, this one here. Let's just delete that. Z, yep, see, too much movement there. Should have been zoomed up on Z because it's just like way too much. Adjustment. There we go. Z probably still has a little bit too much in here. Let's delete some of these. Should I keep this open apparently? Okay, that's not bad. And ideally, we can just find a good spot of this too and then do some cuts. And I'll even add another camera in here. I'm going to set a key there. I'm just going to go up to like 170. Just do a little, dang it, did it again. I'm going to set these keyframes. And go up to 170. And do a little turn. There you go. That'll give me a nice angle. Okay. Then I need to hide these particles. So I've grabbed the particle dot things. I can throw them on a layer and those go away. My guys still are here. I can add some other lights to the scene, add a texture to the guy if I want to. But everything should be good now. Oh, I need to add material to the grass or the ground here, so I can definitely add that. Yep. And then we could even add some sound effects inside of After Effects. When we go to our camera, because we did frames 1 through 170, name.member.extension, 1 through 170, I can just add each one of my cameras and then choose them from the list. So camera 1, perspective 2, 960 by 540. Samples should be good here. Yeah, you can do passes if you know about passes. You can do this denoise thing, which is kind of neat, where it kind of cleans it up a little bit more afterwards. We could do motion blur if you want to. It's just going to take a long time because of all this. We need to do one more thing before we actually go and render, which is to bake our animation. So I'm going to grab the particles from the outliner. And under solver, where are you at? No. Oh, there's cache. So I need to create a particle disk cache. These are the old particles. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say Chickster running. I'm going to just say selected, use render setting range. So I'm only going to 1 through 170, and then create, and then hit yes. All right, so now what this does, it creates a cache. So now we can scrub. Before we couldn't. Like right now I can't scrub, so you can see as I go back and forth here that they kind of run backwards at some point, or they run in place. Where if I go to my range, they're constantly updating because it remembers where the particles are at, it remembers everything about them. I do want to take that last camera and just make these linear again. That's cool. All right. So that's it. So then you can render that out, put it together. Might be a good idea to grab that group. You can see there's a little slit here. because they're low res. So I may want to grab the group and just hit 3 on them. And by hitting 3 on the group, I just gotta grab all these and then hit 3. Where's my group? Nope. There it is. That's weird. I had to turn the group on. All right. I turned the group on, then I moved them down. Let's see if that does anything bad. Nope. That's just a new, I don't know. Didn't have to do that before. So I hit 3 on the group so that they're smooth, so they don't have those weird spots. But if I hide the layer, they go back to being rough, and that's even weirder. So just keep the layer on, but just move them below the ground. And then we should be fine. Cool. So I'm going to set mine to render, and then